All right, hello everybody. How you all doing? Let us know that you hear us fine. I'm gonna tell a little bit about Gilad Bentov. So I met Gilad several months ago, and recently we got to speak a little bit. And I have learned that he actually was born in Israel. Correct me if I'm wrong, and then moved
Yeah.
to Canada. And then what he does now, he tries to bridge or at least negotiate and also explain the gap between growing up in Israel, where there is a strong identity, versus in Canada, and the way identity is treated there. And I thought it was very interesting and something that you'd love to hear as well. And I also want to add something before we even start this conversation, and I'll let you tell you more about yourself. So this is something a bit different, but me as a woman, I have my own limitations on my perspectives. And I heard a lot of people talk about, especially like Jordan Peterson and people throughout the internet, right? About boys whose who and their school experience, and that their manhood and boyhood is crushed. Now, I didn't understand what that means, and I tried to understand. I heard it, I listened to it. I was like, I heard men talk, I listened to them a lot, and honestly it didn't click. And I don't I it's a secretive moment, but when we had this conversation, I had a conversation with you about a week ago. So you described your dissonance, right, when you moved from Israel to Canada, and the kind of comments that you you got, right, where your patriotism, identity, it and passion and love for your country, it was not understood.
Yeah.
And ironically and funnily enough, for some reason, when I imagined myself, like I put myself in your shoes, and I imagined somebody not understanding, or at least like downplaying my role as a patriot, I suddenly, believe it or not, like I've been listening to people complaining about what's been done to men for like years now,
Hmm.
but then I got it. I was like,
Hmm.
your identity is crushed.
It's beyond identity. Yeah, yeah. First of
But like
all, yeah,
I would
yeah,
love to dive into that as well. But
yeah.
this is just, me warming up a little bit the crowd as people are joining. But it also, like, let's get into it, and I'll even maybe be able to explain better why that was the thing that made me be like, aha, so this was what happened to men.
Um, First of all, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for this amazing opportunity. Um, wow, you opened a bit of a Pandora's box. I have so much to say about this, and it goes like um, way beyond, um, like geopolitics or current affairs, politically and whatnot. But the stuff about young men is, oof, wow, I have so much to say about that. I don't even know where to begin. But
Okay, I
um,
think let's start with our comfort zone,
sure,
and then
sure. I would just say, like, I was born and raised in Israel, in a town, like both in a town that's just has a culture of like going to like commando units in the army. Um, I was also like born, my grandfather fought in 5 wars. My dad was in the army. Everyone was in the army. My grandfather's family lived in Israel, before 48. But there was, everybody like rose above, I guess there was Holocaust survivors in my family. There's There's people who fled North Africa, fled the Nazis. People don't know that the Nazis were in Tunisia. I was just born into a family where like hardship doesn't really define you. What you did, the way that you overcame that hardship, defined who you were. And I think that like that was just kind of the culture that I was born into, and also like growing up in Israel, and growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think very few people have complaints about. I think a lot of people are eternally nostalgic for those years, but there's also like this like concept of being a victim it wasn't, I don't know, like your sense of identity, like your joy for life, those things I think were very concrete. Tradition, culture, pride in who you were and your heritage wasn't something that was frowned upon. And then moving to Canada and growing up, moving to Canada and falling like neck deep into this like the postmodern society that it was, and this like perfect storm, because I moved to Canada right when social media started to take off, and I think I just watched this descent of whatever we're experiencing today. I witnessed it firsthand and in real time, and I watched it like descend and degenerate into whatever you want to call what we're experiencing today. But I also remember, like as a young man, like craving like a rite of passage. In a way, it's funny to say, but like in a way, I was kind of deprived of going through the rite of passage of most young Israeli men. I didn't get to go to the army, first because of my parents' decisions, and then later for health reasons. And then I kind of like going through my own struggles, and I was very, very close to Jordan Peterson's vicinity right when he became famous. I actually remember my friends from the University of Toronto talking about him and another professor by the name of John Vervaeke. Hope I didn't lose you there. So I remember like very vividly, very distinctly, this limbo state of like, I think I would say call it 2009, which is my first year of high school, and then really, really took off to a whole new level in 2015, and then just kind of been getting crazier and crazier ever since.
Yeah, no, I'm here, I'm listening. I just covered myself up a little. I got distracted by my own boobs. I'm so sorry. Very inappropriate.
Okay, cool.
I think the audience agreed with me. Nobody said anything, but I got distracted. So
okay.
Cameron, like too much. This is too much.
Yeah, right on the topic of young men.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit now that people are focused.
Yeah.
We've kind of cut it off. Only this is the live version. So
but yeah, I just have so much to say about this topic. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, so you grow up with like a strong identity because, all right, so
here's
the breakdown.
It didn't even seem like this external thing. It like never even occurred to me that there's a life without it, and it's only when I moved to Canada where identity was this thing that was so frowned upon, where it was like such a globalized society where people more people's identity was more like what they weren't, not who they were.
Oh,
So yeah, but
okay.
I have a lot to say about that.
So let me see if I understood who you are.
Okay, who I am.
Okay. So you came, first of all, your family, you said that they went through difficulties.
Hmm.
So you had that story of kind of heroism, right?
Yeah, very
Was
much.
it more victim or was it more heroism?
Um, in Hebrew, there's a really funny saying, "Achlu li shatuli," which means
Mm-hmm.
like they ate, like they took from, like they ate from me, they drank from me, but it's more like you say "Achlu li shatuli," it's more like stop
It's
whining.
cynical though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cynical, but it's I think I wouldn't be surprised if it came from like people who made came to Israel from the Soviet bloc, or if it's Holocaust survivors. But like I have
No,
I,
from the Soviet bloc, it's not that. From the Soviet bloc is nobody cares how you feel, girl. That's the
yeah,
Soviet bloc.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
But
Like
from like other ones, it's like,
yeah,
okay, don't complain.
but like the thing about complaining was more like it was these like pat on the back. It wasn't like quit
Yeah,
your
it's a sense of
whining.
heroism.
Yeah, it wasn't like
So
quit your
so I'm
whining
gonna
and
make
then like
like a
suffer in silence. It was more like this is where you are. Like this is the game.
okay.
Like enjoy the game. You know.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do stuff. You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm doing? So I'm having like a comparison table here. So
Nice.
Israel, how you
Okay.
felt. So first of all, like I say heroism, but you didn't use that word. You said like playing the game. How would you describe it? In a
It's
sense,
just
you.
like my grandparents who were Holocaust survivors.
Mhm,
They didn't speak about the Holocaust until kind of like their last years.
mhm.
When I think they they saw like the end was nearing, and they needed to maybe come to terms with it or something. And my aunt compiled all these videos and made like a mini documentary. My aunt is she's a journalist and an author. Um, and even like my like horrific like things you can't even wrap your head around. Like how did like the word trauma gets thrown around a lot today. And
Mhm.
I heard about stories from their childhood, before the Germans even rose to power, and you know unimaginable things. And even my dad like grew up in abject poverty in the old city of Beersheba.
Yeah.
um, or my grandmother was born in Siberia, and her family was either killed in the gulags or in the Holocaust. And
Okay.
it's
But for you, I want to focus on you because I think
sure.
that's the important thing here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so for you, how did that make you feel?
Look, in
Can I
Israel,
can I
yeah,
put words into your mouth?
you could try. Yeah, definitely.
And
But
then you can okay. So first I would say like there is a sense of responsibility,
there's a sense of gratitude. I remember.
gratitude.
I always remember. I always remember that. Um, I think specifically like in Tunisian culture, like that's from my dad's side, like
Right.
finishing food off the plate. It sounds kind of funny and silly today, but like I think about it today, and I'm like, my dad would be my dad cooks like Tunisian culture. There's a big emphasis on cooking. No offense to the Russians or to the Ashkenazi, but in Tunisian
Right.
culture, like there's this huge
I'm
emphasis on
Georgian.
sorry, Georgian.
We don't we have cooking. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, sorry.
Georgian food is actually very good. Um, but I think about this today, like this concept of like finishing all the food off your plate. And I remember my dad would be like so not offended, but like
Okay,
was
focus
just
on you, not your
yeah.
family. You. It's
Sorry.
important because we're trying to break down like the So here's the like. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna use the word heroism on one hand,
Of course,
and
yeah, of course.
trauma,
Hmm.
responsibility is a. I don't know. Like, what do you think about responsibility? Did you grow up in Israel thinking that there is a way, like something you're responsible for?
You're responsible for your own life. When I grew up in Israel,
And
I played outside all the time, and if I got hurt, I couldn't like come home and whine
so
or cry and complain.
independence.
Independence, responsibility. It's funny that
The reason I say is responsibility is because you also mentioned like people going to like an army service, right? So it's like something that you have to do. So in that sense, there is something that you.
look. I mean, you
Or
said
it
that
is like, or where you say that you have a role. You have like.
I mean, like your audience is international. Like if you just even throw out,
Yeah, but I want you. We will need to contradict that because I want to know if, like in Canada, you still felt like you came from an heroic background, like, or it's like it's important. So walk with me.
yeah,
It's like my crowd knows I torture my guests. So
bring it on. Yeah, bring it on.
okay, so I really need to know, like, like, what did you feel? Like, what was your role?
I
You,
remember, I distinctly remember, like even though it took me like 3 years to pick up English when I moved to Canada, and I moved there when I was in grade four.
Mhm.
I felt I felt that at every step I took, someone was there to like wrap me in bubble wrap, quote unquote.
Okay, so is it, would you say that is like the counter independence you felt, or what is it?
Um, it, it's not even independence. It's like adults who have this notion that a child is utterly helpless, and a child is not something to send out into the world to figure life out, and you don't trust a child. You don't have faith in a child. Life is not an adventure. Life is not. You're not an animal that goes out and explores. You are this fragile thing that has to be protected at all costs because God forbid life will break or something terrible will happen to this child, and
Mhm.
then this child won't become this their parents' is like wet dream sort of be course, but like they won't go to the best university, they won't become lawyers or doctors, they won't be this trophy to show off to other people. Children, I felt like everyone around me was they were like a product, like children. I felt like the children around me were commodities, where I remember like even I like I lived next to the elementary school that I went to in grade six. I didn't know any English. I wasn't from Canada, but me and my siblings walked home from school, and the teachers were horrified. Like they like called my parents. They were like, "How could you do this?" and all these things, and
What were they horrified about?
they were horrified that my siblings and I walked home to school, like walked home from school, because all the other
Mm.
kids had nannies or their parents came and picked them up. Or
How old were you?
I think I was 11 or
And
12 or
your
something.
siblings?
I have a twin brother and a little sister, but yeah, like this is so far back, but um, yeah,
Was yeah. Okay, but okay. So, do you think the way they handled it, how did it was a little bit off?
Canadians or me personally.
The Canadian, like the Canadians, like I'm asking, like, what did you?
Look, I'm looking at it in retrospect today, and I'm looking at it. the effects that it's had on me and our generation, my generation in Canada. I think it's called helicopter parenting, which is just like,
Mhm.
you know, and I think for the most part, like my generation kind of grew out of it.
Mhm.
But there's no doubt, like there's like I saw things getting worse in real time, and I
What do
didn't
you
need
mean? What is worse? What do you mean worse?
worse is like, in high school you start to get introduced to certain facets of life that um, was foreign to you at first, or growing up. We grew up in such an accommodating environment where you
Mhm.
thought that life was just sunshine and rainbows. And
Right.
slowly, as you grow up, you realize that it's not. Life's a lot more complicated than the way that it's painted to us. Um,
Mm.
but then, and I like I'll never forget this. Like I had um, friends who were well, I grew up with, who were very very close to me. And after one semester in university, they came back from one semester, and they were just like different people. Purple hair, shaved hair. They you grow up without really an identity. You're never really encouraged ever to be like a proud Canadian, or proud of wherever you come from, pride, or any
No
sort of like,
pride.
or any sort of
What were
identity.
you allowed to be proud of?
You're allowed to be part of. You're allowed to be proud of that you're an immigrant. I remember, like, you're supposed to, like, flaunt that, or proud to have some disability in a certain sense, or proud to be of a certain sexual orientation. You're proud to be from a minority, or the fringes of society. But pride, like I remember, like if anybody, like you're allowed to be proud of being a Canadian in the sense of like you're proud that you know um, almost like you're proud not to be American, or like you're proud to be you like the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is like a hockey team. But if someone ever said like I'm proud to be Canadian, I'm proud to be Caucasian, like that's unheard of. But then suddenly
Right.
this, like, a leftist professor bestows the identity, like you are now you're crowned, like you are now you may be you're allowed to identify as non-binary from now on. Like this is your identity now. Like, this is what you fight for now. The rights of transgender people, or the rights of LGBTQ, and like you are now
Somebody
allowed.
would like
Yeah, like
come.
someone gives you an identity finally. And as a young
Oh,
person
okay.
in Canada, like you're so hungry for that, and you're so hungry, like, for something to fight for. You're so hungry for, like, a rite of passage from childhood into adulthood, which
Hmm.
that doesn't exist. I think for Israelis, like, that's something that it's hard to wrap your head around. But I'm sure, like, you've traveled, you've met people from other countries. No offense to your audience from around the world, but like, in Israel at 18 years old, you go to the army.
Hmm.
You can't be a child anymore, and you certainly don't come out of there as a child, at least psychologically. But I remember, like, going off to university, where I was preparing to go to the army, and I ended up going
Hmm.
to university. And um, like, college is definitely, in a sense, what it looks like in the movies. But like, I think young people in the West, they kind of stay psychologically childish for a very long time. Where I think in Israel, they, like, at 18 years old, you're a man now, you're a woman now, like you're responsible not only for your own life, but for the life of the people around you. you're responsible for protecting your people.
So what are you responsible for in Canada?
You're responsible for like how many beers you can drink a night. You're responsible for like your reputation. If you're going to go to a party, like you're going to act like an idiot.
Reputation.
Yeah, like in a certain way, like you're responsible for maintaining a certain level of reputation. But
so image.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Was there any sense of gratitude?
Not as a virtue. Yeah, like you're not like you weren't grateful for, like I'm grateful to receive like the finest education, available to human beings. I'm not grateful for the fact that my parents just, I'm speaking on behalf of others, but people went to university and their parents paid for their, I don't know, like gender studies or post-colonial or English, or paid for, sort of say, like a useless degree, but they essentially paid, just their parents paid for 4 years. Their parents essentially paid for their children to party for 4 years, and as an Israeli, that was very confusing for me, because there was this like huge emphasis on education. Like education is what saves, is like a survival mechanism in my family. Education saved my father from abject poverty. Education saved my grandparents from slaughter. Being useful to the society that you lived in. It's something that saved your life. It's something that it's something that made your, as a Jew from North Africa or as a Jew from Europe, you being educated, you being able to provide some form of value to your society, was what, at least the way that it was transmitted to me, down to me, it's like life or death, because the stupid Jews were killed where my grandparents fled from both sides. Like the stupid Jews were the ones, or the useless Jews were the ones who were killed. But the Jews who were doctors, or even craftspeople like sandlers, or the Jews who were like successful merchants, or the Jews who were good farmers. I mean, in Russia, like the successful farmers were killed, but like if you were, my grandfather, his family were like, I think, blacksmiths or plumbers, and because they were good plumbers and they were good with money, they were like kind of saved in a sense, or they had clients who warned them about the Nazis or something like that. And it's just interesting that from both sides of my family, like education, just the way that education was passed down to my parents, and then the way that it was passed down to me, it just wasn't the same for my Canadian friends. And I don't mean to say that, like, I don't mean to say this I don't mean to badmouth my Canadian friends, but there's just so much pressure on me and my siblings around education, where like education is like what you invest in to like transcend your life, to transform your life. Where it felt a lot of the time, like even my friends who were like engineers or studying medicine or law, education was kind of this like thing you just have to like grind through so you can make money. And the emphasis
okay, wait. The
Sorry,
Canadians looked at education as something that you have to do for money?
Yeah, that's definitely what it felt like.
And
And it, like,
but then they went to gender studies. Doesn't like I'm confused here.
ah, my friends who studied gender studies, I don't think had a concept of money because
Right.
overwhelmingly, like their parents paid for that degree, and I think someone
Right.
who pays their way through university, which I had a lot of friends who were like second generation immigrants or first generation immigrants who paid their way through university. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't study something that you can't. They wouldn't study something that doesn't like drastically improve um, your chances of like making a solid salary, I think. But just one moment, I just have to grab a charger. Sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
For my
Can you
computer. Sorry.
still hear me? Okay, everybody, how you all doing? Let me see what you're saying in the meantime. Thank you. Shana, thank you so much for your support. Hello, beautiful Rebecca and guest. I have migraines, so I can't be on the screen, but I'm listening and I'm here. Hey, hey, sweetie. And in the West, most parents didn't hand down an identity or heritage to their kids. Some because they believed that the culture would do it, some because they had nothing to give. This left a vacuum. All right, comment.
That's exactly right, Shauna. That's exactly right. Yeah. And this vacuum is,
All right.
yeah. I don't think like I can tell you. I really I saw it full time. Like very few people can handle this vacuum. Like the nihilism that comes from this vacuum is, um, it crushes people. Yeah, crushes people.
Can you? Okay, so you said for you going to school and everything, like that was like a lifeline, as that's how it was perceived. And you were, but those who went from your friends who went to school, why do you think they did that? Those who went to something,
Because it's like a tradition. It's like the culture. Like
it's like
you're
what they're expected of you.
yeah. It's like hammered into you from grade 9. Like okay, like
Right.
now you're gonna choose what you're gonna do for the rest of your life, and like 18 to 21 is it's like pitched to you. It's mythologized. It's not like where I remember like growing up in Israel, like 18 to 21, it's mythologized as like go and do the most meaningful thing you can. Like go and be as useful as you possibly can for your peers, for your country. Go learn as much as you can. And obviously, I think not a lot of people get to have a meaningful army service in Israel. But I know friends who did like incredible things in the army, and the army taught them skills for life, or taught them
Mm-hmm.
even about life. Where when I went to university, it was like how it was like debauchery is the word. I don't know what the word is in Hebrew, but like it was like how much can you party, or like how much can you handle, like how big of an idiot can like how much insanity and like near death experiences can you squeeze into 4 years, and then you'll have like a legendary like university career or university life. And it was just
Okay,
very
so
confusing. It was very confusing as an Israeli.
here's what I'm hearing. Okay, this is how my brain translates it.
Yeah,
On one hand, there is this like a culture with a sense of gratitude
yeah,
for even the smallest things, education as well. On one hand, gratitude, then second, and then the second way to look at it is opportunity. So the equation is of gratitude and opportunity versus the other culture that it looks like it's expectation and then on like how do I describe like I didn't know I was thinking here to say it, but it's not like gratitude. It just say thank you that we give you something, right? It's more like you owe us?
Yeah, like it's
Like,
a entitlement. Entitlement.
I don't know if it's like, I would say like, okay, you have something, right? It's like, we need to say thank you that we have something to eat, but it's like gratitude that we all share, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
you have to eat, I have to eat, versus like an a culture where you have to eat, say thank you that I gave you food.
It's a culture of like say thank you. You have like say thank you. You have food first of all, and say
Right.
thank you that you have someone who gave you food that you didn't
No,
have
I
to
mean
pay
in
for.
the Canadian side.
Oh, it's,
Or was there no? I'm because
no,
I
like
think more about the
food is
education. Like you said,
food is like something
people,
that's a given. Like like the concept of going to bed hungry is completely foreign. It doesn't like
and the same with education, right?
educate like everything. I think that's why it's our generation is so like hungry for hardship or hungry for struggle or I think that's what at the core of like this influx of white young white Westerners like flocking to the Palestine protests. It's because they need something to fight for.
I also want to talk about, so so the Israeli experience gave you a sense of independence, and then a Canadian of helplessness, gratitude versus it's a given, and then opportunity versus expectation, responsibility versus image or reputation,
Hmm.
and then you have a role that is based on pride and your sense of the world versus being a trophy, product, or commodity.
Hmm.
And then there is the thing with trauma, which I thought interesting. So the trauma, uh, so it's like a culture that throws you into trauma versus a culture that tries to shield you away from trauma.
Uh,
And because I think the trauma thing is very interesting.
mhm.
I'm guessing also another thing is that the sense of vulnerability of something, is it something to, okay, so I have this vulnerability, but it's like I have to get over it and live my life as like that's the Israeli, like, which I think there is like criticism on the Israeli side as well. It's not like everything's perfect here, but there is this sense of
Far from
like
it.
you
Yeah.
you go through so much, but you're like, okay, you have to push through it, and you're not proud if anyone notices your vulnerability.
I think luckily, like our culture is starting to understand more and more that um, pushing through things is not healthy, which is I think
Right.
is a tremendously positive thing. But like what was confusing for me, like look to me moving to Canada, like the vacuum that exists in Canada, to me personally, I think that
Mm-hmm.
was a traumatic experience. Whereas I lived through I remember the second Intifada very distinctly. I remember the bus bombings. I lived 10 minutes from Hebron. I remember the bus bombings. I remember the second Lebanese war. I remember as a 10-year-old kid, like the first famous soldier that was, I remember like Gilad Shalit gets abducted. My name is Gilad. Um, and that's and I'm going further, like I'm going far with that. Like as a kid in the growing up in the Negev, I think I was exposed to events that to Canadian parents would be considered traumatic all the time. But I never felt traumatized growing up. I think I had a phenomenal childhood. But something about this magnifying glass in Canada and um, and just this oversensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like a petri dish for trauma. It's like everything is so it's
Magnified.
Yes, and everything is so perfectly set up where,
Hmm.
like, of course, a kid's gonna like register something as traumatic, or
No, because it
even
sounds like something that you flaunt over. Like I went through this or that. Like
yeah, or like you show off, like, hey guys, like look at the meds that my parents gave me. Like I take all these meds, um,
right,
and
and I,
it influenced my parents. Like my parents eventually gave me Ritalin and a slew of other ADHD medicine. Whereas today, as an adult, I can tell you that I think what I really needed was just to, I think, play outside more,
mhm.
or kind of just like get more energy out. But yeah, like in Canada,
Okay.
parents are just so overprotective. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to diving into your identity,
Hmm.
but let's this time let's I'm gonna tell you focus on yourself and only you.
Sure.
Don't bring anything. I want
Mhm.
to like look inside of you, and if you were now the child that you were before you moved to Canada, and somebody would ask you, what is your identity? What are the characteristics that make up your identity? What would be the list that you would have given them?
If I'd never moved to Canada,
No, if you go back to the child that you were. If you want me, I can share mine as a
sure.
child. I can go
Yes,
back.
please.
So, first of all, like I'm a girl.
Okay.
I'm an older sibling. I'm an Israeli. I'm a
Hmm.
Jew. It's I am like I also come from like a I'm half like Georgian Jewish, Russian Jewish. There is also like an aspect of that, right?
Mountain Dew, tough Mountain Dew. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. It's like it's a night for those who know stereotypes in Israel. The combination of Russian and Georgian is like the nightmarish.
Tough. Yeah, tough people.
The like the person you don't want to meet in a dark alley.
Dark alley. Funny.
Yes. So there is um, right. It's like it's a mix of like the Hebrew, the languages as well. By the way, I would say
Mm.
was part of my identity.
Okay.
So I was like, "Who? What are you? Who are you?" I was like, "Okay, I'm Rebecca. I'm a girl. I'm Israeli. I'm this. I'm that. Like, and I'm an elder sibling. Like, I think a lot of my identity was like, I love reading. I am a reader. I'm a nerd, or I wouldn't say I'm a nerd. I denied that when I was young, but like,
Okay. Yeah.
so
Interesting. Yeah.
who are you? Well, like I think I tried to tap into my answer as a child, not necessarily how I would answer now,
Mm-hmm.
but as a child.
Interesting. I gave a lecture almost exactly about this topic a few days ago, where I talk
Hmm.
about like reconnecting to who we were before we had social media, because I think social media there's this added pressure to maintain an online persona and so on and so forth. But I actually have a pretty vivid memory of who I was as a child. I would say, like, I'm
By
a
the way,
boy. Yeah,
can
sorry.
I insert myself in for a second? Because I
Yeah.
want to say, like, one of the biggest differences between how I would answer now and how I used to answer. Like, I would, as a child, I know I would say I'm Israeli, and then I would say I'm a Jew.
Hmm.
Now I would say only one of them and say they're the same thing, and like I wouldn't distinguish between them.
Oh,
So
that's
so
interesting.
this is a big thing that changed, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just this is why, like,
Interesting.
just for the audience, like to make it clear, that's my child's, and like this is me as a child
That's
answering.
really interesting. That's really, really interesting, actually, and it directly connects my answer, because as a child, I would say, like, I'm Gilad. I'm a boy from southern Israel, from the Negev. Um, I have a twin brother. I'm the eldest. I have a little sister. And for me, I would be like way more proud of being Israeli than I would be of a Jew. Like, because a Jew, like being Jewish to me was like everyone around me was Jewish,
Yeah.
and even though I grew up in a town where there's Bedouins and there's Arabs and there's all sorts of people, to me, like Israeli, I, I have to admit to this day, like my Israeli identity for me is like way more. I'm like way more proud of that. I'm very, very proud to be Israeli. Um, I'm the son of a doctor. I love movies and cartoons, and I'm very creative, and I love music. And
Amazing. Now you
that,
moved to Canada. What's your identity?
Jesus Christ.
First of all, you go to Jesus Christ. Lovely.
It's a shock. I will not,
You
like, I think for the rest of my
you move
days.
from goddamn to Jesus Christ. Yes.
It's a good Freudian slip. Freudian slip.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. Like I honestly, like I think for the rest of my days, I'll never forget the moment when I realized, like, oh, I can't be myself anymore.
You
I
cannot.
remember
Okay.
it was like a moment. I walked into
Amazing.
I walked into a classroom, and I think I was like trying to crack jokes, but I didn't know any English, so I thought humor is like this universal thing,
It is not.
um, and in Canada things were like very politically correct, very proper, very polite. And I kind of remember the first time I crossed the line and the way people were like, and I didn't do any like I didn't do anything like God forbid like perverted, or I didn't cross a line that I wasn't someone who like crossed lines or something. And um, the second I realized as a child, I must have been like 10 or 11, like the second I realized that like I can't be myself anymore. I can't just like act out of impulse or what I feel is intuitively who I am. I have to behave in a way now. I have to behave like the people around me if I want to connect with them. Otherwise, I'm gonna be some like undomesticated, like unhinged Israeli in Canada, and I can't do that anymore. And while in Israel, like my wild behavior and my creativity and my energy was something that, like the kids around me were like the kids around me were. It was like a positive, even for the parents. The parents were like,
Right.
"Wow, he's so creative." In Canada, it was like that kid needs a high dose of Ritalin. Like that's all. That's what it felt like. Um, and if I had to like find an identity for myself in Canada, I would just say like I'm an Israeli immigrant, and I don't know I don't know what I'm doing in this country.
Right. But
That's the only,
then,
and it took me a long time to craft an identity. Like
okay,
I only, yeah, sorry,
how was it to craft an identity?
exhausting and very challenging and very confusing. And
Can you walk us through it? Did you feel like a Canadian?
I never felt Canadian to this day. After
You wouldn't
15
say you're
years,
Canadian.
just because I feel like I'm an Israeli who got an, I had a Canadian upbringing maybe, and I'm fortunate enough to have grown up in Toronto. But look, I grew up in a perfect storm. Like I moved to Canada in 2006. By 2007, everyone around me had Facebook, and I was 12.
Right.
This is one the years when our minds are the most malleable. They're the most subject to change. I didn't know any, like by the time I had, like when I first signed up to Facebook, I didn't know any English. It took me like 3 years to learn English. So I moved to another country. I have to invent myself from almost from scratch at age 10. And then everybody gets Facebook, and then now I have this like online persona that I have to maintain.
All right. Can I stop you right here? And I want
Sure.
you to try to imagine that you are not Gilad,
Okay.
but a super Canadian child from your class who
Okay.
gets asked the same question.
Okay. Mm.
So, what's your name, just for the
My name is Josh.
Josh? All right, Josh.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself. What's your identity?
Um, I'm Josh. I was born in Toronto. I love the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jays and the Raptors, and I love sports. And I love reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I love watching Disney's Recess and going to, skiing on the weekends and going to my cottage and cottage is like a summer home. Going to my cottage, um, and like tobogganing. I don't know. Yeah, that's how I describe myself. Yeah.
By things you like.
I think yeah. As a kid, you identify by the things you like to do.
All right.
Where are you from?
If
Yeah,
you're Canadian.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, not by your core, not
Yeah,
by
like,
your
I
gender.
don't, yeah. I don't think someone like you know whatever Canadian means. Like the neighborhood that I grew up in had Portuguese and Greek and Filipino and Jamaican and Croatian and Albanian.
Yeah,
Had a
but
ton
you
of
didn't even start with saying I'm a boy, I'm a man, I'm a brother. No,
irrelevant. Yeah, it's a given.
irrelevant. It's a
Yeah.
given. So I here's what it's interesting. So I feel like there is one thing that you said that happens in that you said in Canada, you are given an identity, which I have to say, I also feel like this is something that is Israel does.
Um,
But
yeah, but in Israel, like, there's so many identities. Like, you talk to someone who grew up in Pardes Chana,
mm,
or you talk to someone who grew up in Haifa, as opposed to someone who grew up in Kfar Saba or Beersheba, Meitar, Eilat. Like, um,
by the way, as a child, I was also a Kfar Saba supremacist.
yeah,
It was
Kfar Saba, Kfar Saba and Ra'anana. Yeah,
all the no, Ranana is like mm, all the kids that grew up anywhere else are not as good as kids who grew up in Kfar Saba. Everybody knows that.
but
In
like,
fact,
it's like that forever. Like if I remember like one thing distinctly is like I had friends or family friends or even family that grew up in Ra'anana in Kfar
yeah,
Saba, which it's like almost the same thing, two sides of the same coin. One
yeah.
thing I
Well,
just
don't insult me like that, but continue.
yeah, but like one thing I remember growing up is
The
that
for
is
the
that
for people to understand, like for an Israeli children, like a Kfar Saba, it's like it's being called abroad a
yeah,
Canadian when you're American, and vice
Beverly
versa.
Hills,
So
yeah.
that's another Kfar Saba.
But I remember like my friends who grew up in Kfar Saba and Ra'anana, and I grew up in the suburbs of Beersheba. My friends in Kfar Saba and Ra'anana were like polished and polite and elegant, but I also remember like they all spoke English as kids. I actually can't remember why that is, but that's something I really remember is that
In Ranana they do, but in Kfar Saba not that much.
yeah, definitely in Ra'anana they spoke English. Yeah, interesting. It's good memories.
Okay. So, so would you describe yourself as a Toronto person? No, it's too big, right? What about your neighborhood?
Oh, it's just such a big place. But
Like neighborhood in Toronto or something like that?
I moved neighborhoods a lot. I grew up, my first,
No. I'm just like it's not like critical. I'm just wondering because it's funny to me because not only
there's a
like Israeli
kibbutz. There's a
identity.
kibbutz. Like in Israel, in Toronto, there's a neighborhood where all the Israelis
Mm,
moved to, which is the kibbutz.
right.
And it's ironically like it's where Drake grew up.
Mhm.
Drake the rapper. It's called Forest
Drake.
Fell. Drake, yeah. But it's like an amazing neighborhood to move to as an immigrant because you have Albanian and Jamaican and Filipino, Portuguese and Greek and Israeli. So and then
Right.
like alongside that, you also have like unbelievably wealthy Jews, like super wealthy Jews.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Let's go wrap them after the show. Anyway,
yeah. Yeah.
so okay, so here we see like on one hand, there is an identity that is also very strong on locality, even in Israel.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, an identity completely based on what you like or dislike at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you said like, okay, then at some point our teachers said and like gave us an identity, what stood out to me is that I felt like that identity, that given identity, is somewhat alien. It doesn't even necessarily align with some like with your natural inclination, right?
You're gonna have to explain that a little bit more.
So you said like you had a teacher like, okay, now you fight for binary stuff.
No, it's not that. It's that your professors were the kind of the first people in your life that provided you with a sense of identity. We're growing, we're growing up. Identity was something that was frowned upon. You know,
Your
uh,
professors in school or university?
university. Yeah.
So until university, you're I.
Like there's no point throughout your upbringing where like your high school teacher or even like look I played football and rugby.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There's a huge like British like there's like a huge like British element to rugby and there's a huge like American element to football and they're both like physical, very violent sports, but they're manly sports. It's kind of where you go to you prove your manhood, you prove your worth on the field. Um, and like you kind of like you get these like it's called a varsity jacket, like you get the football jacket and I'm the foot like I played football in high school or I play rugby in high school, like that's who I am.
mm-hmm.
But
Very
even
interesting.
that, which is like that, that's like that's as far as it went for me in my pursuit of getting some sense of identity and trying to figure out who I am and what I'm capable of and what I'm worth. My coaches didn't provide me a sense of identity or something to fight for. You fought for, you know, like the trophy at the end of the year. You didn't fight for your country. You didn't fight for values. You didn't fight for your tradition. Um, and I had like a wonderful English teacher who like really made it like her whole thing was like you have to fight against smartphones and social media and this is like I think 2010 2012 maybe and as far back as then she was like you have to fight to preserve the culture that you have to fight to preserve the culture that produced something like the Beatles or the book like The Catcher in the Rye. I remember like she was the first person that instilled in me the sense of like you like you fight for the things that make life worth living.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something she said directly. Um, and she gave me a book like The Kite Runner or um, The Catcher in the Rye or like kind of like these very deep books and something that she would kind of tell the class was um, like forget who. I think this quote came from Nietzsche, maybe, but and this is in high school, like this is early, but she was like, "What bothers you about life? Like what feels not right about life? Like that's your destiny. Like that's your calling. So if you feel like there's not enough, if you feel like there's not enough good movies, or there's not enough good books, or there's not enough philosophy, or there's not enough good music, and it's something that like calls out to you, like that's what you should do with your life."
Mm-hmm.
This English teacher was like, like God sent. She was someone that was had a huge influence on me. But this is one person. It's the next time I heard someone talk this way, it was Jordan Peterson on podcasts or online. There's
Okay.
nobody in your life gives you these lessons. Yeah.
So let's talk about like in general, like zoom out and talk
Mhm.
about like in general, like not necessarily your experience, but something, the things that you've seen, and of course, how you coped with it. What does it do? That shock, like what does it do to Israelis, and what does it? Let's start with Israelis. What does it do to Israelis?
Uh, I can tell you what it did to me. I don't know what it would do to Israelis, because I think Israelis are already they're already fully formed, and Israelis are just so blunt and so authentic and very honest. Um, I was 10 years old when I moved to Canada, so I'm kind of half and half. But um, being stripped of your identity, or having your identity or your sense of self, um, the vacuum that uh, is created when
Sorry,
vac-
I
it's
I
okay.
I just like I
Did you hear me? Did you hear me there though?
no, I'm listening to you. I just wanted to let you speak like freely, and but I feel like I want to focus it a little bit, because when we talked before, like we talked about like Israel is really getting lost and like going to drugs and
Yeah,
like I really,
I remember distinctly there was
if
Israelis
is
that
it
I
okay
moved
if I give you
with.
the stage, and then
Sure,
just
sure. I
because I
can say
feel like
like there was Israelis that I moved with to Canada when I was 10, and like I was supposed to move to Canada for 3 years and then move back, and then we ended up staying for 14 years. And almost every single Israeli that moved countries turned to drugs, turned to alcohol, um, turned to those things where. And this is kind of the warning that I give to all of my Israeli friends who have even flirt with the idea of like relocating to America or Canada or New Zealand or Australia or even Portugal. I tell them like, go there and make money, or go there and experience stuff a little bit, but don't go there to escape. Um, there's this, I think the world in the last decade or maybe even longer, there's this culture of like globalization where there are no identities, there are no traditions, there are no like, we're all the same. Um, we're all in the same, we're all, yeah, like we're all the same. Um, and I think people are more defined by what they're not. And and I can relate that to like the protests and the anti-Israel sentiment abroad, and I can get to that later. But um, I think Israelis don't understand um, they don't understand how intuitive our culture is, and there's no moment of hesitation about like, oh, like I might say something that will be received like you don't ever question who you are in Israel. If you're from Mitzpe Ramon or Hadassah or Pardes Chana, which are like very spiritual, very like hippie type places, or if you're from the bourgeoisie of Ranana, Kfar Saba, or North Tel Aviv, or Herzliya, or if you're from the difficult cities like Bet Sha'an and Be'er Sheva and Ofakim and whatever. As an Israeli, like I find I've never encountered Israelis who like kind of question their identity the way that I did because I moved countries at such a young age. But at the same time, I think Israelis, you know, Israelis are like we're almost like a nomadic people because Israelis travel to India and South America and Thailand and Australia and New Zealand. They go all over the world, Nepal. The only people I've ever heard of who have done treks in Georgia and Albania and Romania are Israelis. We travel. We're like hungry for new experiences and new people and new cultures. And I think like the terror that I felt on October 7th, or the terror that this terrible fear that I have about Israel, before, God forbid, like an existential threat to the existence of the country. If Israel loses its sense of self, its sense of culture, and moving back here after 15 years living in Canada and coming back and seeing like how much high tech and money and luxury and material success and material things in general has not even influenced, but like has convinced people or changed Israelis in a way. And like my fear is that Israel will lose its true nature. I have this terrible fear because I know what it's like when you don't have. I know what it's like when you don't have a place to call home and you don't have an identity that you can rest on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I kind of turn to individuals, especially when I try to encourage people abroad who aren't Jewish, who have no direct connection to Israel. I'm like, there's going to come a day in your life individually where like something horrible is going to happen to you. It's inevitable. This is a part of life. Someone you love is going to die. You're going to get sick. Something terrible is going to happen. And biologically, psychologically, like when something that's that intense happens, the thing that you can fall back on, like your safety net, is the identity that you've built. It's what you've built up. And I've seen Canadians my age, or I guess this was when I was in university, like crumble and still haven't recovered when the most trivial and the most like minute and the smallest, most insignificant event, or it's not insignificant, but like if it's a breakup or like I'll never forget this, but there was this is a great example. There was a girl in my class in high school who like didn't get accepted to the university that was like her top choice, which was some, I don't know, I can't remember, but she didn't get accepted. And her identity or the identity that she thought she was like a house of cards. And the second that something wasn't exactly right and that she didn't get accepted to this university, she crumbled, and she hasn't recovered since. And this was like a brilliant student. Like, her parents like raised her to perfection, but um, she didn't get accepted to her top university, or she didn't get accepted to like the top program. And then your identity just like completely crumbles, and then you have to pick yourself up back again from scratch. And I've seen this so many times, growing up in Canada, and like, I don't think my life is. I don't want my life to be like a cautionary tale. But I don't know. I just had this like terrifying thought where, I'm imagining what my generation is going to be like when we become the parents and the adults and whatever. But
No, don't worry. When
yeah,
I saw that happening and somebody came into me and asked me, listen, I do geopolitics. When
yeah,
somebody asked me about like the way it's going, I said, don't worry, the Arabs will save us.
yeah.
I always say that
Yeah,
ever
it's
since I was little. Every time somebody came to me, listen, this is the you said like a half Georgian, half Russian, like,
yeah.
and don't worry, the Arabs will come and save us. You don't need to.
Save us. Yeah, save us from ourselves.
They do all the time.
God bless them.
God bless them. Thank
God
goodness.
bless
Um, okay, so I want to just, you talked like without Arabs.
them. Oh God. Segue.
What is your tip?
I'm gonna. I don't want to. I just want to call. I just want to say Arabs, but without an existential threat.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we don't have to face existential threats. Our grandparents and our ancestors already went through that stuff, and they, by the grace of God, or the grace of their own wisdom, they left us this. They left us their own life lessons.
Right.
They passed down their wisdom, and it's for some very odd reason it was dismissed and disregarded by the people who were responsible for our
What do you
upbringing.
mean odd reason?
I think it's bizarre. I think it's bizarre that the people who were
Do you feel
responsible.
that those things you didn't grow up with them?
I grew up with them in Israel, but in
Okay, but not in
Canada,
Canada.
but in Canada, um,
You know what the answer? Do you know what it's called? Like, yeah, I'll feed it to
I
the
think it's called
crowd.
globalization. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
No, so that's the what not. What yes, what you're describing is a need for mythology.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, and
So what
mythology
mythology
saved me.
is exactly what happens, because it goes from generation to generation. At some point, it's not your own experience. When it turns into mythology, that's how
Yeah,
you pass it on.
there's a book
והגדת
called
לבנך.
כן, לגמרי, לגמרי. There's a book
So, or
called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. If your audience is interested, by a guy named Joseph Campbell, who was, I think, he was like the Carl Jung's most prominent pupil in America. In the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces is essentially this American mythologist Joseph Campbell. He like scoured and studied all the world's major religions, all the mythologies, all the folklores, and he compared mythology from, like, let's say, South America, from the Incas, to folklore in Siberia, to Chinese mythology and Greek mythology, and then the biblical stories. And he was like, they all follow the same thing. And he formulated something out of it called the hero's journey, which is a universal theme in all the stories that human beings tell, which he argues is rooted in the collective unconscious and this like deep psychology. And I can get into it as well. But I remember, like, I read this book at 23 after a whole lifetime of just being so hungry for identity and a rite of passage, and like a test or a sense of adventure. And I read this book religiously, no pun intended. This book saved me, and I view my life now as a journey, as an adventure, as a quest, and I don't view hardship. I think our generation views hardship as something to be embarrassed. It's like our life is supposed to be pristine, the way that everyone's life is on Instagram. But mythology gives you a roadmap to navigating through life. And to quote Joseph Campbell directly, he says mythology teaches you how to live a human life to the fullest extent, no matter your circumstance, something like that. And then if you want to just know how relevant this book is to our lives, Aladdin, The Lion King, The Matrix, Toy Story, Beauty and the Beast, Star Wars. Holy crap! Sorry, Star Wars. Joseph Campbell was a consultant for George Lucas when he created Star Wars. So this book has had a profound impact on our lives, and it's an amazing book. So yeah, mythology is huge.
That's one of them. And the second?
The second book? Sorry.
No, I don't think mythology is enough.
Tradition or practical wisdom, because mythology is it's very much fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start to realize that practical wisdom.
Tradition. So something to guard.
Something to tell, something to prevent you from feeling like you have to reinvent the wheel. Practical wisdom is like your grandma being like, I went through this exact same thing, and my grandparents went through this exact same thing, and you're gonna have to go through this exact same thing. Like, don't waste time trying to reinvent the wheel. Like,
I wouldn't, like, I would disagree with you here, because I think the tradition here, for example, is something like to fight for, in a sense. Like, Friday dinner is Friday dinner, and it's always a challenge. Like, like.
Yeah, but like a perfect example that I could use even here is like, like tradition for us could be, or practical wisdom for us could be something like education will save your life, and it'll save your children's life. Where tradition for like the Bedouin tribes that lived around where I lived, in the Negev.
Yeah, their tradition
could be like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, if you actually think about, they never get bored, because there's always some blood revenge to execute with them. So they really do have something to do all the time.
But the Bedouins in Khura were different from the Bedouins in Lakia, for instance, or the Bedouins in Tel Sheva, which So, but yeah, I think tradition is like the survival tactics of the people who came before you, and they're passing it down to you now. And even if you have technology and your life
Like
conditions
to
are like,
me, what is like what bothers me specifically, I feel like it's too close to mythology, what you were describing. So it could be like almost wrapped up into one,
mythology
like
is universal.
not necessarily. Not if it's first of all, it's adapted to your locality, and your traditions
Definitely.
are folded into the mythology, and every area needs its own, because otherwise it's too general and you cannot relate to it.
Definitely.
So this is
And
why when I say
yeah.
tradition, the thing that popped into my mind, it is actually the rituals, because rituals like ground you back, and I kind of
Yeah, definitely.
felt this is what you meant, and then when you went like I would say like what you described is like like it is folded into mythology, because you have to adjust mythology into locality, right? Even though there is
Mhm.
like a global, I agree 100%. So some values are global that are mythological, like something that is building us all, but it has to be like adjusted so that you could relate to it.
Mhm. I
Um,
remember. Sorry, just because I remember specifically like Joseph Campbell, like the guy I just spoke about, and I encourage everyone to look him up. He said that the four functions of myth are like the mystical or metaphysical function, the cosmological function, um, the sociological function, and the psychological function. So, like the best quote that he has about this is like the point of like you need to match your heartbeat to the heartbeat of the universe, or you need to match what you're going through internally and your own internal journey to the journey that you're experiencing outwardly in the world, or the journey that your people are going through, or the journey that human beings are going through.
mhm.
So, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
I like because like the so here's the thing, right? You have the tradition of what would keep you alive in the desert is not exactly what would keep you alive in a forest. There is a difference.
Yeah, but
What would
something
keep
keeps
you
you alive.
alive, the traditions that like as a woman is different than a man. Like you need the hero story. It is global. It is a mythology, but it has to be adjusted. And I
Yeah.
really do think that on top of that, you have to be something that when you said something grounded, like that is where I would say like I think that by the way I didn't think of it, for example, but yes, like as in sense of like I think rituals ground you down, whether it's like Friday dinner, like rules like that, things that are
Yeah, and that's something.
like how
Yeah,
to host a person, how to like
yeah.
I see why you would like say it, and like something in between, right? So like
Mm,
how do you host someone who might
yeah.
feel like something that could be put into both, depends on how you dress it up.
Hmm.
But I think it isn't like important to like have something concrete to distinguish the two. And I would say like that I would personally say that there is a third element, but I don't know if you.
Okay, what's that third element? I'm
I would
curious.
say a challenge that is lifelong and you could never achieve.
There's a name for that challenge. It's called individuation.
I mean, I don't know what do you mean by that, but to me, um,
Individuation is a lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. But I'm
I
going into
think
like Jungian psychology there, so
I think that is not something that is defined well enough to be passed on, because then people just go do drugs and never get there.
um, think that it, it's not something that needs to be passed down because it's like a universal psychological process. It's just that I think very few people go on this. I think very few people confront this, embark or confront this process head on.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how would you describe you doing that? Can you do it by going around India
No,
and
that's called.
doing the
I
pass?
think that's escaping.
So,
That's escaping it.
exactly, that's escaping. So here's the
Yeah.
thing, like that I know what was done, right?
Mhm.
So somebody who knows what something should look like would phrase it in a way that could be interpreted wrong. And then the next generation that would get that message would not understand what those who wrote the message down or passed the message down understood. So when I say,
I mean, look, like, you're like you come from, you come from, like, you and I sitting here and living in Israel, and like my family came from Tunisia and your family came from the mountains, and yet we share a mythology, we share a set of values, we share a tradition that's led us to us being here, and I'm
and for centuries
and
the
yet it's
lifelong goal that a Jew would held is to go to and live in Jerusalem. And for years, think like if you think about it,
no, but
it's a
I mean,
challenge. It's a
but
lifelong challenge.
yeah, but
One
look at
maybe
us,
never achieve. But
but look at
once we
us, like
got
we're
to
here,
Jerusalem,
and now
there is a new
Jerusalem
and
is
now
this
you can
a
live,
challenging city.
but
Yeah.
here's the thing, like it doesn't end. So you always need to redefine it, because you know what, when you set a challenge, it is a challenge that the goal is to reach it, but you also need to be like, okay, so after you reach that goal, so what's next? And it still goes with you from generation to generation, I think. At least that could be like, that's one thing like that.
Um, I, I I meant to say it like, yes, I agree with everything you said, but I meant to say it more like, uh, like the tradition of like going back to like living in Jerusalem is it's less than 2,000 years old, but the tradition of like telling the truth and bringing light into darkness, and um,
That's not a goal. That
no,
is
but I'm saying
that's
like
the path.
the mythology of Judaism, the tradition of Judaism, the story of Judaism.
Well, there it's, that you say is only 2,000 years, but there was another. It's not the first exile.
The first
By the
exile was
way, the first
536
exile
BC.
is
Yeah,
when this
the
identity
Babylonian
was
exile. Yeah,
formed so strongly,
right. We
and it
became
was
Jews.
around coming
We be,
back to Jerusalem.
we
It
became
was
Jews
around that.
after exile. Yeah,
It has a lot to do with Jerusalem.
of course, but and specifically Zion. It's not just Jerusalem. Um,
Well, it's another name for Jerusalem, but yeah.
but when you say Zion, it's not. It's not. You don't go back to Jerusalem as a tourist. You go back to Jerusalem as
Right, as a citizen.
exactly. It's different. It's not
Yeah.
just you don't go to Jerusalem the way you go to Athens or to the pyramids in Egypt. You go to
But
Jerusalem.
I would say, like, in after mythology tradition, right? I would
But
say challenge is one
but
of the things that keep you.
but Zion is almost like, it's like the promised land, and the promised land you
Yeah,
don't but you
but
don't go
now there is,
but
yeah,
it's like it's like the story of like how Moses didn't get to enter the promised land, or how David didn't get to build a temple.
right.
David had blood on his hands.
But
Moses,
comes a generation that does
right?
that,
But
and then you need to update your challenge.
and then our grandparents are that generation that got to
But
build the promised land.
this is why there was this
But think about that. Our grandparents, my grandfather was born in 1942.
But don't you think that a lot of what you described, right, is what you feared on in Israel, came about because we are in Jerusalem?
I don't think I'm about to say something very controversial, but I don't think, look, there's air, this atmosphere, this vibe, there's something very special about this land, and it changes. It changes. There's something. There's something. There's
Okay.
something intangible.
After you reach a goal, there is disillusionment.
I don't like goals. I don't like goals because I feel very empty after I reach a goal.
This is why you need a lifelong goal that you'd never reach. This is why I said it. Like you get from your family.
But there is a goal, and that goal is called individuation. That you become the.
No, but that is badly. That is undefined.
It's defined. It's defined well by Carl Jung, but it's definitely it's something that
Carl Jung was an old man who went through a lot during his life to understand what he says when he says that.
That's a very good.
That is so important to understand.
That's very good. But I think if the lifelong goal for me is to become an extension of the child I was before moving to Canada, before social media.
So you're like nostalgic.
I'm not nostalgic in the sense of like.
Was it like you want to go back to the last time you felt like you're strong in your identity?
I want to go back to the sense that.
How about like?
I'm not like a Peter Pan type of thing.
I'm not saying that.
I'm saying more like what I remember as a child. Like I had this life. The world seemed like this big place where you go out there and you bring your visions to life, or you become kind of your own hero. But the sense of liberty and the sense that you're on an adventure. That's something that I definitely miss. Where today life feels like you're just like drowned out by trivialities, and I almost feel like we're in a society that just doesn't have a myth to such an extent where life feels like not to me, but I think life feels like a burden to a lot of people. Sorry, we're going.
No. Okay. Can I put a caveat on that? Like, I think that it's some people. We are in a society where sharing your myth is politically incorrect.
Politically incorrect.
So there are people here that walk with a goal and a myth, and they wouldn't tell you.
Like a personal myth?
Like going back to Jerusalem, something like in that sort.
Okay, imagine what me as an Israeli would sound like if I told I stood up in my Canadian class and said, Jerusalem is this
imagine how crazy it sounded than this wonder Jew for 1,000 years would say every year, next year in Jerusalem. When the last time they were in Jerusalem was a 1,000 years ago.
I have a perfect example because people always found it very arrogant when I was like, it's a miracle that Jews, we fought for Jerusalem and then we live there again, and feel like people always. It always was. I always was met with like, oh, like you guys, you were promised this land 3,000 years ago, so you like walked in and you just like waved, you waved the Bible and you're like, oh, I deserve this because I'm a Jew and we're God's chosen people or whatever. That's always the way people reacted to that. But I had Lebanese friends and Egyptian friends. I even had Palestinian friends in Canada. I had friends from all over the Muslim and Arab world, and they were genuinely like I was very close with them. And I mean, I never like the whole like God's chosen people thing is, I think it's an unbelievably misconstrued and misinterpreted idea by our own people. But my friends and people who are a little bit more hostile always were like, oh, like you guys think you're God's like most favorite people, and you think you're better than everybody else because you're God's chosen
We are
people.
better than anyone else.
I don't like that. I really don't like that sentiment. I really,
I,
really
I
don't.
don't.
I don't think
Well, it's
I
not
don't think
even
we're
true.
better.
It's we're chosen. We're not better than.
But we're
It's
not
not the same
chosen.
thing.
We're not chosen because we're favorited and we're better. We're chosen. We're
No, we
responsible.
were favored.
We're not allowed to say like, look, God chose a lot of nations. You know, we're the nation that chose God, but to choose God is to choose responsibility, and I think we have a responsibility, and we're not allowed to behave. We can't just behave like everybody else. We have to. We're not allowed to say we didn't know. We're supposed to be the ones who address problems head on. If that you know, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's our
Okay, I
mythology.
see. I see where the problem lies. All right, there is a mission that I just wrote to myself here. Listen, I think that it took insanity to stand up and say next year in Jerusalem after 1,000 years outside of Jerusalem. There is
My
in the
grandfather told me my grandfather was in that war, and it's funny, like, because my grandfather grew up secular.
I think it's time to bring some insanity back.
Insanity?
Yes.
Oof, I think the world is insane enough, you know?
No. I'll say you what. To be the one that guy that stands up and says, I'll be the person. Like we'll get to this. We'll get to space. We'll discover it. We'll move to other planets.
That's
We'll.
not that's not
That's
insanity.
insanity.
That's not insanity. That's transcendence, I think.
Well, yes, but it is perceived like right now it's a trend to say space expedition, but to be the one that would say I'm like I want the Arab world to become productive. I want to rebuild Jerusalem. That's the insanity we're reading at now.
Look, I don't like I hate Ben Gvir, and I hate the whole. I don't like to use the word hate, but I've met amazing rabbis who speak about building the third temple
Right.
the way that a real estate developer talks about, you know,
Can I tease you a little bit?
the apartment complex that they're going to build next year, and like I like that to me is almost is like it's incredible because they speak about it as if it's going to happen anytime soon. So
Yeah,
sorry.
but then it comes from a rabbi, and then you expect them to be. Can I say something? Now, don't respond to that. I'll just throw it out in the air. Could it be that you hate Ben Gvir and whatever because they do the things that were taken away from you?
No, I won't answer it
I'm
though.
just no. But like honestly, like because they do what you were not allowed to as a child in Canada,
No,
and
no, no. I
and
understand.
if it could be that it makes you angry.
I
I'm just saying like I think it's like something to consider. I don't like something because like I
that's
feel
an
like a lot of
interesting.
times an
Yeah.
anger comes from that, and it takes a lot of time to understand that, just from my experience, because like sometimes it's like because it's like you don't get the same reaction when you look at like the Arabs who say crazy things either, right? And it's like, or in any other, like in Canada, whatever, you don't look at them, and then it's like maybe they but whatever, it's not that deep because I really want to move on to the next thing,
Sure. Yeah.
which is has nothing to do
I
with
was just looking at the comments. People are saying some really interesting things. Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I really do think like when it comes to Israel, it's like it's a whole different conversation. There are very different perspectives here that need to be understood. But it's
I
like
think I think leftist
it's like
Israelis. I see what you mean because I see in some leftist Israelis not the way that they react to like Beitar fans like La Familia, or they almost envy their strength of conviction,
right. So I think
or
maybe you have that a little bit
their,
in yourself as well. By the
their
way, Gila, just
clever.
so you know, my crowd is used to be me being like that. So
like like what?
like
Um,
every person that is interviewed. Actually, usually I warn them. I didn't warn you, but it's okay. You'll
it's okay.
survive. Okay.
This feels like therapy.
All right. Just something to explore. All right. Something to
I'll think about
because
that.
because after we had that talk, it's like they do what was taken away from you. It's so clear to me. Because it's not necessarily the fact that you disagree with them. It's just the strength of the reaction. So it's one thing when you react to what somebody is saying, and then you're like, okay, you break it down, and it's different when you have an emotional reaction, and that comes from a different place.
Okay,
um, be-
interesting.
I can say that because I don't have that kind of reaction to any politician, no matter where they stand, ever. And I feel uh, because okay, let's set that aside. All right. In
Okay,
the end of the day, like my goal is to make an Israel better country. I don't care who says what.
amen.
I would
Amen.
even use things that my enemies say in my
Okay,
favor, because this is really how I look at things, right?
amen.
What can I use for? There are things that's the given, and the only question is like it is what it is. How do I use it to get to the better place? Uh,
Okay,
but
okay,
but
very
I
good.
want to really set that aside
Okay,
because I want to switch from something that I probably wouldn't even be able to relate to as much. But I'm curious.
go ahead.
Manhood.
The Pandora's box. Let's open it.
Let's open it. How would you say, can you do the same thing, an Israeli child before he moved to Canada? What is being a man?
Uh, Before, I think to me, being a man was always presented to me as protecting and providing. Um,
Protecting and providing.
yeah, protecting and providing. Um, that's definitely the way that it was always presented to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially in my family, like the I grew up in a very matriarchal family because
Mm-hmm.
the grandmas were always like it was always like the men provided and protected and facilitated for the women to kind of be
The soul.
the the soul of the family.
The
Yeah,
soul and the body.
yeah. And then when my
Okay.
grandfather died, my family was still able to kind of carry on.
Mm-hmm.
But when my grandmother died, I think that's like that. Um, the tree trunk of the family was cut. But excuse me. Um, Look, like manhood in Israel and manhood in Canada are just two such drastically different things. When I was in Canada growing up, I constantly tried to compromise because manhood in Israel is very obvious. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Israel has a way, way healthier sense of, which sounds really ironic, but Israel has a very healthy image of masculinity. Because in Israel, you don't want to be like the idiot, like Big Brother reality TV star who can flaunt like what he did in Golani. Everyone can see through that, and everyone knows that's not the image of masculinity that you want to pursue, but the guy who I don't want to use an example of like the guy who jumped on a grenade um, is like it's an
Mm-hmm.
image of but the guy who
But like
sacrifices his life
heroism,
the guy who sacrifices life for others.
sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrificing for others.
Okay, can you
Yeah,
please continue describing manhood in Israel? I'll just go off the grid for a couple of minutes if it's all right. I'll just
sure.
give you the stage. You guys forgive me. It's because I think it's important. Unless you wanna cut it and wrap it up and then do it in a different time, if you
Like
prefer.
we could definitely talk about it. We could have a whole episode, but manhood in Israel, I think it's
Okay, so
healthier
let
because
let me speak. I'm gonna let you speak for a while.
manhood in Israel is defined by how much you sacrifice for others. And Israel has a very toxic um, culture around not getting screwed over, and still, despite this, your status um, is how much you're willing to do for others, like how much you're willing to sacrifice for others, and it's unbelievably competitive here. It feels like a dog eat dog world society here, and still every single year, every single day, there's young men and women who are it's young men who are willing to lay their life on the line and leave everything behind for others. And when you have clear guidelines on how to become a good man, in a healthy sense of masculinity, it frees you from being lost and directionless, and it gives you guidelines on how to be a good man. And as an Israeli guy growing up in Canada, it was just so confusing. I didn't understand if I was supposed to like work out more than other guys, if I was supposed to be better at sports, if I was supposed to be more of a jock, more sensitive, more of a nice guy, more macho, if I was supposed to study, become a lawyer or doctor or make a lot of money. It's very confusing growing up in Canada. And luckily, like my father, my father's a doctor, and really sacrificed his life more than once, both in the army and both as a physician for his patients. Um, so I had that image at home, and I had some semblance of Israeli traditions and values and culture like instilled in me even growing up in Canada. But growing up, I was taught to treat women like princesses and be ultra respectful and be a gentleman no matter what. But in Canada, I saw the jocks and the bad boys were the guys who got the girls. Um, I'm kind of going on tangents here, but it wasn't until figures like Jordan Peterson and came along and provided like resources and books and even gave us permission to where he says like you should be dangerous, but you should learn how to control that. You should be learn how to be under control. And I think I was like 21, 22 after spending my transformative years being so confused and directionless and constantly trying to understand how not to just be a man, but how to be myself. But um, like being a man in Israel means to protect and provide and sacrifice and defend your family and defend your country. And I'm just looking at what your comment says here. Like, what does it mean to be a man in Canada? I think it means to make a lot of money. Um, yeah, or yeah. Um, being a man today is confusing, but I think it's not any different. It's the same set of rules that have guided men throughout history. Even though we're not fighting saber tooth or invading armies, it's the same thing. Um, um, it's universal. It's to be a man is to go out into the world and go on your own hero's journey, and then come back with the boon, or to come back with whatever lessons you've learned from um, your battles with life. And once you're ready and you have enough resources, it means to protect and provide and for the love of your life, for your wife, who will become the mother of your children, and then protect and provide for your children. Yeah. If you're still out there.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm just. I just like interfering a lot, so sometimes I have to pull myself out to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, my
That was my
question.
little.
So that is Israel, and in Canada, you say being a man is making a lot of money.
Um,
Oh.
I feel like even in Israel,
Mm-hmm.
like Israelis like I have a lot of Israeli friends who went on dates with American or like girls from abroad who moved here, and they always complained. They were like, these girls, all they care about is money.
Right.
And even Israeli girls who obviously want a comfortable life and whatever, they don't want to be housewives. They don't want to be pampered or something. They want to go on their own adventures, which is fun. I just thought about that as like it's almost like women here are a little bit more masculine, or they have more masculine traits.
Here.
Yeah, in Israel, they're very like independent, if that makes sense. Or they don't. Yeah, like women in Israel have more masculine traits. You know,
You
you go to
think
the
that it's
army.
masculine?
Actually, no. I think it's being more in touch with their feminine side, but it's then you're getting into animus territory.
Because, like you say, so protect, provide,
Yeah,
sacrifice.
as men. Yeah.
But the question comes, what you protect, who do you like, what do you provide for,
As
who
a
do you
man in
sacrifice for?
as a man in Israel.
I mean, like if you this is what you describe, right? So
Yeah.
making a lot of money stands on its own.
It's just one part. You can In Israel, you can't just make a lot of money. You also have to be
But in
responsible.
Canada, is this that is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so let's tackle the. Can you explain to me, as somebody who suffers from being a woman, which means I
Suffers
have
from being a
zero.
woman.
I don't really, but like I enjoy being a woman. Actually, like or I could say like I'm privileged enough to be a woman, to absolutely have no experience in having my manhood taken away from me, or downgraded, or downplayed, or uh, like I never, what I'm like. I can say I've had it from the maybe feminine side,
Hmm.
but I want to talk about it as a phenomena that like is so not, and it's like it's the rage, right? Everybody's talking about it. It's everybody's
The rage?
like, it's like the trend now. Everybody, for me, right? So for me, so imagine, like, for me as a woman, like, I
Mhm.
go and look at masculine spaces, and I see everybody talks about, like, what is a man, like, our men, like, how the, like, what's masculinity, what's manhood, how it was taken away. And for me, I hear that, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, okay, how do you take somebody's like, how, like, what does it mean, like, what does it look like that?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing it's always been, and it's the same thing that it is universally from all over the world.
Like, but why is such a thing that, like, why is it that?
Look, the rage that you're talking about, it's a shadow. It's what happens when your masculinity is
Yeah, thank you, somebody here. The rage
suppressed.
is the latest thing, old speak. It's not like
Uh,
literal rage. I didn't mean like people are angry. I meant like the latest.
I think rage is suppressed masculinity.
What how was it suppressed? What does it look like? Like, what is, like, were there
If you
moments where,
don't,
like,
if you don't, if you don't, if people don't teach you how to be authentic and how to go out and I think as a man you have these internal your body's aching, your body's calling you to go out and prove yourself to yourself and to others and to challenge yourself and to um, push yourself beyond your limits. And if you're not provided
right?
that, or if you're told that if
Okay.
you're, yeah, if you're told that that makes you a violent being, or if that makes you a danger to society, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So from my perspective, what I hear, so once you focus on making a lot of money, that's always relative. So that means that the
Look,
vast
you
majority.
can make a lot of money being a drug dealer or a pimp, or
No,
you
no,
can make a lot of
but it's
money.
not what I mean. I mean, it's relative, meaning only 10% of men would be honored to be called men if you go by that standard.
What do you mean by cold men?
What makes a man is salary, is like how much money they make.
Yeah, it's a very one-dimensional way
So
to.
you take so that means that and it's always relative. It's always relative, right?
Relative to what?
Like,
Relative to other men, or relative to like what
yeah,
you're.
like, what it means to make a lot of money is always relative to what it means to make a lot of money in the society you live in.
Um,
Like, no matter what, let's say only 10% make what we call a lot of money.
I think like how much your dollar can provide, but it's more relative to like I think there's a great YouTube channel called Psych Hacks with a really wise psychologist where he says like if I had to teach young men what women want, is that what women want is what other women want. So
That's a
if
stupid idea.
it's a stupid idea, but
But it's not true.
it's a stupid idea, but it's an oversimplification, but it's
You know
relative in
what?
the sense of like
So can
sorry,
I say, as a
yeah.
woman,
I
well,
didn't mean to be misogynistic, by the way.
no, it's not that. It's a misunderstanding, as misreading and misrepresentation.
Hmm.
The thing of uh women want, like, what look at what other women approve, not because they are attracted to men that other women approve, it because it gives them social insurance that this man is not dangerous.
Mm. That's really interesting.
So it's very different. So it's not because we are not at all, not even a little bit attracted to the same man. Okay, not at all. But we look for each other's approval, as in this guy is it even a good idea? Because like
Okay.
this is how we perceive it. So we look like if an other woman like confirmed, it's like okay, this is a safe choice.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's a such it's this is why I always feel like these spaces don't have enough women. Like we also had this talk in a car, right? It's like okay, like uh like households with a step father have like abuse kids more, and I was like say yeah, but nobody like talks about the fact that the women are the ones that sharpening the wife, even if like the knives, even if they're the literal biological mothers.
It's terrible.
It's like it is, but it's reality. So if you take like woman's perspective into account, like the reason that happens is because women look for social insurance, like this person is safe. And
Mm.
then the way they sometimes do that is just look who other women approve. And I can tell you that like yeah, if there is a guy that like no woman approved, like I'm apprehensive because it's okay, something like he's a dangerous. And my experience approves it. If there is a guy that like I don't get confirmation from a woman, most of the time they are not good men. Like when I mean good and not good, I mean like violent and so on and so forth.
Yeah, like you should be like physically, like you should be like physically menacing enough where like a woman feels like you could protect her, but not too much where she starts to feel like you're a danger to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
So, yeah, so when so how do men look at it? Okay, for some guys attractive, like all the girls, like they no, like it's not because we are attracted to the same kind of guy, not at all. It's
Mhm.
because it's like that means that he went through clearance. Basically, that's what it means.
Yeah. Wow.
So so
We
different.
we managed to speak about everything. About everything.
But like so I was saying like you start talking about like making a lot of money, right? I'm
Mhm.
just saying that that always means that only 10% of people would reach that. Only 10% of men will be men, if that's the condition.
It's
Because
just
there is
one
always, it's
look, but
always like,
if you
like,
had to if you had to like interpret making a lot of money in an evolutionary lens, it's like resourceful and
but then you wouldn't say making a lot of money. You would say providing,
able to
which
provide.
means
Yeah, able to provide.
exactly, which is a very different thing. First of all, it puts you relative to something, which is different from making a lot of money. Making a lot of money
Not really.
is
Yeah.
it doesn't it if you say to somebody making a lot of money, that stands on its own. It's my you don't it doesn't say like what you like. It doesn't put you in a framing. I think you're stuck. Gilad, are you stuck? No, you're not.
Yeah,
You're just not moving. Okay. So
I'm very good.
freeze statue. Did you consider that as a career, being a statue in a park? Anyway, so when you say making a lot of money,
there wasn't enough
that
money in
could
it,
be
so
that is very different from providing. Because first of all, it's always like making a lot of money means that like you're making money, like it means that you are put in an hierarchy with other men.
no, that's like
And
now you're
then
getting into status, but like I remember like
but then what are you making this money for? Versus when you say provide, it's clear that you are making money to provide. And that's where you
uh,
like your masculinity is like, can you protect? Can you provide? It's different.
yeah, that's the there's I keep like I just keep referencing books, but there's a book by a psychologist that was like a really controversial book, and it's called Why Beautiful People Have More Daughters. This book caused like a whole storm when it came out, but he talks about exactly this point, and I remember this book. He talks about how like it's not like about what attracts a woman about a guy making a lot of money is not the fact that he can make a lot of money and he can like drive nice cars and those things. It's what's registering on a primal level, like deeply subconscious level, is that a woman knows that her child will never run out of food to eat. But
Yeah.
there's a threshold where if a guy
Hmm.
starts to make a lot of money, now there's a primal fear of this guy might want more than one wife, or this guy
Yeah.
might want to spread his seed
Hmm.
beyond the scope. I'm not going to be the number one.
Yeah, that's neglect. Like once you're in a
Neglect,
vulnerable
and it's the
position.
same. And it's the same thing with being like a physically. It's the same thing with being like like a big guy. Is that
Mm-hmm.
you could be a big guy up to a certain point, and that'll attract a woman. But once you go beyond that, the woman's going to be like, this guy's spending too much time in the gym, or this guy is going to be dangerous to me as well.
Can
So,
I know I said let's not use family, but can I break my own unofficial rule? When you say like this, all those that all everything that you describe, like protect, provide, like this heroism and sacrifice. When my parents made Aliyah, they're both doctors.
yep.
And there was no money, obviously, zero money,
Hmm.
and two little kids. And my mom was like, okay, let me go, like I'm gonna find work, like as like I'll clean or will do whatever. And my dad was like, no, you're a doctor, you're not gonna be anything but a doctor. And then he went and he like even, but he said like, but it's not true for a man, I need to provide and protect. So he went and
Hmm.
was like washing dishes, right? He's a doctor as well.
That's what he did when he first moved here.
Yeah, like he went to wash dishes as a doctor. And my mom was like, okay, I can go clean. And she's like, no, you're not a cleaner. You're a doctor. And you wouldn't work as anything but a doctor. Uh, and it's like, because like,
Yeah. Look, when my dad was a doctor in Israel, he was making 20 shekels an hour.
yeah.
And when we lived in Canada, we didn't have a lot of money until he reached like the partner level at the clinic that he worked at, and then suddenly my dad made more money than his entire bloodline combined.
Hmm.
Um, but my, I think my dad literally told my mom like FYI, like I don't plan on making a lot of money. Like I just want to be a doctor and I want to be able to cook. It was like that's the just
But doctor is like, it's like,
it it carries
it's good
it carries
enough.
it carries a status, but in Israel, I don't think people go to med school to make a lot of money. No
Yeah,
way.
but you can live. It's a livable salary.
Yeah, but I think
It's
people
like,
want to make.
it's not starvation.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Sorry, my friends are watching the stream. I'm just texting them. Sorry about that.
They're watching. What are they saying? They can
They're-
chat. They can write in the chat.
they just joined now, so they're like usually she talks about geopolitics, but now it's about dating and psychology. So I just have to
Oh,
I have to tell them like it started off with geopolitics.
oh, okay, okay. You're clearing the
Yeah.
there are kind of there are some people in the chat here that had been dissing you the whole time, saying that I shouldn't date you, and others that were pro or and against. It was a very funny chat to look at times.
Dissing me? Oh my god! I don't want to say.
It's like it's funny. It was hilarious. Um, no, I mean like it's just things to ignore. You know, it's what you do. It's what happens when you're on the internet.
Yeah.
Somebody also wrote that I'm the ugliest Israeli and Jew that he has ever seen in the
Oh,
chat. We're
oh
talking,
boy.
so I
Today?
no, listen. I don't care as long as nobody writes something about.
Look, I started off my Hasbara career like very very strong, and I was like on my way to really like having a lot of followers and a lot of reach and so on and so forth. And then someone found out my name, and they found out that where my brother lives in Toronto. My father, works in East Jerusalem. Like, my father has patients. I don't know, it's already out there now, but like my father's a doctor who works in Jerusalem, so he has patients that come from the West Bank, all over the West Bank, and the internet can be a very dangerous place. So I understand.
What does it have to do with like
No,
you got threatened?
I
So
got
this
death
is why
threats.
you kind of stopped. So what?
Yeah, I took a hard break, like a hard
Really?
stop. Yeah, it was really scary. They
Yeah.
knew where, like, they found out like my ex girlfriend's name, my name, my sister, my twin brother in Toronto. My father is a physician who works at a hospital in Jerusalem. Like, anyone can, God forbid, knock on wood, but
Yeah,
like
but why
anyone.
would they want to do it here? Like the one thing that people ask me, because
The type
I
of
like,
content the type of content that I put out at the beginning of the war, was had the potential of. I don't think it had the potential, but I was um, I wasn't just like sharing my opinion, and like everything something happened, I like filmed, and like, I was like, guys, there's no genocide, guys, there's no famine. That's not. I was sharing, like, clips from memory, or I was sharing like clips from, um, Hamas leaders, like, admitting to using children as human shields. So
right.
it was very exposing, and I had one video that went like really viral, where it was just like 6 minutes of like Gazans, Palestinians, and Hamas supporters themselves admitting proudly to sacrificing children as, human shields. And, after I put this video out and it caught traction, um, I started to get a lot of death threats, and I didn't. I like didn't really care. But then once they started, they're like, "Oh, we know where your brother
But
lives. We know
yeah,
where your
but
father
the
works."
thing that confuses me about Jerusalem thing is like, if somebody has that mindset, like choose a random target, why would you choose a specific one?
Because I had the potential of. I really thought that. I think I had the potential of like really bringing down, their narrative. Yeah. And people told me that, like, people even recognized me on the street. That was really creepy, actually. Now that
Yeah, yeah, no, sometimes they're creepy. Sometimes they're okay.
at the beginning,
What was the weirdest thing that somebody did that recognized you?
um, there was a Palestinian streamer named Hamza, and there was
Hmm.
another guy named, Dalton Jamari, whatever. And I went live with both of them. Um, and then I walked into an AM PM in Tel Aviv, like in the heart of Tel Aviv, and there was like a cashier, um, who like looked at me, and she was kind of giving me like dirty eye, and then she was like, "Is this you?" And she pulls it up, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, he was just talking shit."
Why were you sorry?
I think I just got caught off guard, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry. Like, that guy's crazy. Like, we don't like him." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, that's so amazing. Like, even the Arab Israelis, like."
You were infected by Canadianism.
Yeah, no, I apologize too much,
Like yeah, it's
but then, the things that I was saying, in that stream were very. I definitely I wasn't Canadian in that stream, and I was saying like harsh things that I think.
yeah, but they love it. Come on.
Yeah, but if you can get recognized in the street saying those things, you can get in a lot of trouble. Look, like, yeah.
I don't know. I don't. I don't think it's so problematic. Not in Israel, because I feel like we're all fair target here.
That is a good point. Yeah.
But I understand why Canada could be problematic, for example.
Just
Like
that,
honestly, like
yeah.
why bother go through everything like when you can just take someone random?
Good point. That's a good point. Look, once someone on the internet starts pointing out like where your family lives, or where where your dad works, or where your twin brother lives across the world, like that shit really freaked me out. Really freaked me out.
Yeah. No, to me, like I block the ones that call for rape.
Oi, oi, oi. You do that?
Yeah, I got those a lot. So I like, to me those my least favorite ones, and then after that the death threats. I prefer death threats than rape threats, to be honest.
Can't say I've had those. I'm sorry to hear that. On
Yeah.
that note, it's I don't wanna stop the stream, but I
Yeah.
don't know how much I have left in the engine. But
Yeah,
here,
yeah, let's go. It's
let me
time.
just see if
Wait,
people
what?
are
No,
still.
maybe we should say something nice before we go to sleep in that on that note.
I think the good thing is I was reading just like on a positive note. I was reading today about, I don't know
Yes.
if you know, but like Wiz
Oh, yeah,
turned
yeah.
down like a 32 or $23 billion um, acquisition offer by Google. And
Mm-hmm.
I read this article that was like kind of outlining like all the kind of like some of the impressive things, and some of the like the reasons to be optimistic that are like under the radar regarding Israel. And um, I'll need to find it. It was on LinkedIn, but it was just such a breath of fresh air, just seeing like how much investment is being poured into Israel, or how much um, like it feels like the world is falling apart and it's on fire. And then you read something like that, and it's like, okay, like underneath it all, like a lot of really good things are happening, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think there is a lot of room for that.
yeah, sure. Are we still live?
Yes. All right, everybody. I think we're gonna wrap it up with
Amazing.
on that
I had a
note.
lot of fun. This was a lot of fun.
Me too. That's very nice, and I really thank you for making sense on the men stuff for me.
I hope I did. I didn't get to. We'll have maybe we'll have to do a whole other episode on it, because
All right.
there's
I
so
think
much
I
more.
think we can have use asking questions as well if you want.
Yeah, I have a
Sounded like you
whole
had some.
I have so much more to say about that. Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. Go follow. Where do you want people to follow you?
The best is on Substack or on Instagram, which is good son underscore joy forever. It's a funny name, but
Cool. I'll
it's
go follow you.
yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was a huge pleasure, and it was nice to connect with everyone. And I hope we'll be back talking on the stream again.
Good night.
Yeah. Hey, yalla bye.